Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Friday, June 6th, and Jamie is in South Bend. As you can see, he's not at his normal setup. He's in South Bend for Irish Invasion Camp, which he just came back from, and he and Matt Freeman are very excited about the types of prospects that were at the camp this year. They've been kind of spotty at times. In terms of the quality of player that's coming to the camp, big time players at the camp this year. And Matt said one of the players had one of the best workouts he's ever seen. So we could talk about that and who he's talking about. We'll talk about 2026 as well. Notre Dame had some wide receivers on campus and is going to have some very soon with Ephraim White, Jade Warren, and Kdon Finley was also on campus. Alistair Vallejo was on campus. We'll talk about him. Talk about Joey O'Brien and where we think things stand with him setting commitment date, moving up his Notre Dame visit, official visit to the 13th instead of the 20th when he's going to be committing. So lots and lots to talk about today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you heard, what you hear, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. Shoot whatever it is. We are going live. Links to the podcast are in the description below. And as always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. You've seen ESQ and all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches. With over a decade of making the best custom clothing available, ESQ will help you look and feel your best in 2025, from a perfect fitting suit or sport coat, shirt or bomber jacket, or the perfect tuxedo for wedding season. Check out Ge's amazing work at esqclothing.com. Book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention ISD and get 10% off your entire purchase. That's esqclothing.com. Jamie, let's just start with the camp at Irish Invasion. Matt put out a list of players who fired him up. One of those players was Malcolm Ziggler, the quarterback from who was the 2027 quarterback who came in. There's going to be some guys that Notre Dame's looking to offer there. Who fired you up, Jamie? Who do you want to start out with right now?
Well, we can start with the quarterbacks. I know people want to talk about it. Obviously, it wasn't like a big showcase for 2027 quarterbacks. There were some 2027 quarterbacks out there, but like Jamison Purcell was like another quarterback who threw there. But
Malachi Ziggler,
Malachi Ziggler. Yeah, Malachi Ziggler was. He's the guy to watch out of the guys who were 2027 guys who could get offered. Jamison Purcell is up there. I don't think he's going to be offered. Like, he was kind of exactly what I thought he was in terms of, like, he is tiny. He is very tiny, and he's like he's lacks arm talent. So he's a good little high school football player, but I don't think he's going to be a guy for Notre Dame. Malachi Ziggler, on the other hand, he's physically impressive, very, very impressive. He doesn't have that much experience playing quarterback. Like, he doesn't have like crazy productivity. So that's kind of like why people might be a little bit slow to kind of like at Notre Dame and some other programs haven't really gone all in on him. But man, just seeing him in person, you could just totally understand how people could just fall in love with him, because he's so he's big. He's got a really live arm. He's not just someone who throws 100% fastballs all the time, although he can really zip it in there. He's got a whip, but like he can layer the ball. He's got really nice touch. He'd look good in the accuracy thing they did at the end as well too. So I mean, to me, it's like not about whether or not that is going to check all those boxes physically there, everything. And he's a good runner too, right? Like, obviously he's a dual threat as well. It'll be about, what do they think of his kind of football intelligence? Can he pick, if he doesn't know certain stuff, can he pick stuff up? Some of those like meetings that would have with like Gino Guidugli or like Mike Denbrock. And that would ultimately be the thing, whether or not they decide to offer. Obviously they had Teddy Gerard on campus just right before this. And he seems like a guy who's like, really in the mix for an offer. But I mean, I can't see anything that Ziegler did today on the field that would have hurt his chances of getting an offer. Because sometimes that happens, right? Where guys come and they're like, no, he just didn't really it's kind of the bright lights are on and he didn't perform, but he absolutely performed. He was good. And there was like a ton of 2028 quarterbacks, that guys that are going to be guys for them And it sounds so crazy because it's like the 27 guys, they haven't offered anybody yet, but I just can't see like somebody like Trayvon Towns, who was like a big time 2028 guy who was on campus. I don't know how that guy can walk away from campus if they don't offer him. Like, it would be stupid to me if they didn't do it.
Yeah.
He looks awesome. The ball just comes out differently with him. I mean, I watched his film already too, and he's a very impressive prospect. But I think that looking at him in person reminded me a lot of like seeing CJ Carr, when he was a guy who already had an offer from Notre Dame, but was like kind of on that rise and was like a very top guy where he separated himself, where he just looked different than everybody else. And to me, Towns was that guy. He looked the most impressive out of everyone. I mean, Ziegler you could put right with him, but I would say like Towns, especially him being younger, that really, really stood out. Like he's a dude. The other guy that Matt mentioned, Neiman Lawrence, who's a guy from Miami Northwestern, he was not as consistent, and he needs to physically develop a lot more. But the good from him was really good, and he's going to be he's going to be a good prospect. So that's a guy I could totally see them getting involved with. Obviously, you don't get too many kids from like Miami Northwestern coming up for a camp like this. So, he's obviously would be pretty serious about Notre Dame. And I think like there was some other guys like Grayson Clary was another guy who threw the ball pretty well. I liked Graham Simpson. I thought he threw the ball pretty well as well. He's another 2028 guy. So I think like out of this group, you're probably going to find at least 2 or 3 guys that are going to be guys for them, targets going forward that they would have probably liked today.
Yeah, it's tough, because of the location of some of these guys, right? So like you have, you have Miami Northwestern with Malachi Ziegler, that's Louisiana. With Trayvon Towns, that's California, right? It's like out near, it's Jimmy Clausen's alma mater, I believe it is. So like that, regardless of what USC is doing with their operation, like Lincoln Riley is for the foreseeable future. We, who knows what could happen with a bad year, but he's going to be their head coach, and he's very good at getting quarterbacks, right? And so that's going to be a difficult pull for Notre Dame. Obviously, a Louisiana product is going to be very difficult for Notre Dame to pull out of Louisiana and LSU. And then obviously you have Miami Northwestern. So that's tough. But it's good that they have, they had these guys on campus, right? And to get them onto the campus, and they get to see kind of the new building that's going up right now. Like everyone's kind of posting pictures, like that's coming along. Like those players get to see what's coming down the pike with the Notre Dame football program. And obviously, Notre Dame had a great year last year. So like there's a lot of stuff going on for Notre Dame and positive momentum on that front. You want to get these quarterbacks on campus. Like they still haven't made that offer. Like Teddy Gerard reported that he didn't get that offer, right? Malachi Ziegler, it remains to be, he's still on campus now, so we'll see if he ends up getting an offer. Is it to the point now where the way Notre Dame is communicating with these players, and I think everyone is kind of concerned about why haven't these offers come out? I think it's kind of gotten to the point where the players kind of know Notre Dame likes me. You can kind of identify they're probably going to offer these guys if they haven't done so already, maybe just not in like an official manner or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case. And I think if you look at it, there's a bunch of guys that are like on Notre Dame's list that have like just been offered within the last like week by like Oregon or some of these other big schools, right? So it's not something that, that to think that 2027, how come they haven't offered anyone yet? It is surprising that they didn't offer some guys, but there's still a bunch of top guys that don't have the offers from certain schools. So I don't think it's crazy now.
Is this one of those things like in a month or two, it'll be a non-issue? They'll make offers and then.
I think totally. Like there's no way they go into July where they haven't offered anyone. If they do, then it's just like maybe they just don't want to take anyone. You know what I mean? Like that, to be honest, right? Like that would be the case where they were like, they really hated these guys. Like they just didn't, maybe hate's a strong word, but they did not like any of these guys to the point that they thought that any of them could do it. So they were like, well, we might as well just wait for more junior film, right?
Yeah.
If that's the case, because Gino's seen all these guys throw. He literally spent the whole month of May going and seeing all these guys throw, which is, I'm pretty sure that's why they didn't have a bunch of 2027 kids here and say like, hey, you're going to throw today, because it's like, he's already saw him throw. Like it's, in their own environments, which is like, kind of having your pro day instead of them coming to do your workout. Right. So, I don't know, right? Like and I know that there's certainly some guys who don't feel good about it, and because they have this offer, well, this team can offer, and then they can't. It's like, well, if you really want Notre Dame, then what does it matter if it's like 3 weeks later? At this point, as long as he's still like, and he's being honest up front, they haven't offered anyone. You're not like their second choice, so. I think that from that perspective, it's like one of those things where I think you would love if they got something done, but what good does it do? Like we said, like a week or so ago, when we were talking about, well, if they had somebody locked up and then that guy decommitted right now, they're just starting the process over again. And it's just like, they're where they're at now. So that's just kind of the status of it.
Yeah. So like, we'll obviously keep tabs on that. We expect offers to come out fairly soon with these quarterbacks. Matt said that 2028 defensive end Jackson Vaughn had one of the best workouts he's ever seen. What goes into that? How, at a camp like this, what would make him say that?
Well, a lot of that is like because a guy's dominant in one-on-ones, and he was, right? So that's the thing that why you would say that. And the thing is you can't even really say like based on the whole thing, because Matt is watching, he's getting quarterbacks, he's getting this, and we're all going around the whole time. So we're not watching like the full workout of everything. But I mean, I could just say like Matt and I both watched him, and I watched him a little earlier, and then we got together and watched him again later, and he was friggin' awesome. He was fantastic. And definitely like when I was watching the D-line early when they were going through Indy, individual drills, and he was different than everybody in terms of just laterally how he moved, just like reacting, like running through bags. And you could say like, well, it's running through bags. And to me, to be fair, like I don't care too much about bags, but if you see certain traits, some athletic traits through it, that's a good thing. You definitely saw that with him. And he was just doing things in pass rush, just in terms of like his ability to like turn the corner, just to like swipe hands. Just he was very advanced in where he was, and just ultra like reactive athlete who could like bend and turn the corner and like contort his body in order to win as a pass rusher. Just it was an elite job that he did in terms of his edge rushing, because he's not like short armed or anything like that, but he's not like freaky long. Like there's another kid, Isaac Miller, who's out there who has an offer. He's a 2027 kid, so he's not 2020.
Yeah.
First of all, there's no way Jackson Vaughn is walking out today with they will offer him today. So if they haven't already, and we just haven't reported or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So he will. Yes, that will be a guy for Notre Dame, right? And he's going to be a national guy for everybody. He's probably going to be a 5-star kid. Like he was so good. But I'm saying it because like, he's not a guy who has like, you're not going to fall in love with saying like, he's so long or he's this or that or whatever. And I don't even think like I've seen some of his testing stuff. His testing stuff is okay, but he's just incredible when you just see him in terms of like, you see the twitch in person, you see the lateral movement in person, you see his just ability to play football and just do these football activities as a pass rusher. It's a lot like Boubacar Traore, where he's got some of that kind of just natural ability too. So he's going to be, once he just builds up. He's a Bergen Catholic kid.
Yeah.
So obviously
That's what I was. I was going to flag that. Like
that's a good thing, obviously, for Notre Dame, because they've obviously been in Bergen Catholic. But it's, but Ohio State gets in there too, and like everybody's going to get in there, right? So yeah, he's not like a whatever, as John Imperial said, he's not like an under the radar kid. It's not like he's someone who came into the camp as like an unknown.
Ebenezer Ewatade or something like that.
Yeah, he's a guy who was definitely on the radar of everyone, but he's a lot of these offers that John mentioned, the three, a lot of those happen in this last little bit because people have seen him. He's gone and camped at a bunch of these, like he went to Texas and all that too. And he's 100% a guy. If he goes to your camp, he's walking away with an offer. Like, you're a moron if you don't offer this kid. He has a chance to be really, really special.
Yeah, Matt highlighted Braden Parks, a D lineman from Brother Rice in Illinois, as someone who he's a 2027, someone who was unblockable in individual drills, and he looks like an interior D-line guy. Obviously that's Illinois, right? So that's another one where it's like you kind of feel good about that. Did he stand out to you as well?
Yeah, him. Jeremiah Williams is another guy. He's a California defensive tackle. And then there's another kid from Mississippi, Devin Robertson, who his thighs are basically the size of regular people's torsos. He's just a monstrous kid, monstrous lower body. All those guys are 300 plus pounds. They're like 320. Not like, none of them are like freaky long, although Robertson is like good length or whatever. And same thing with Parks, is like good length. And Williams is like probably a little bit more like short armed, not in a bad way, like in a totally like, oh, this guy can never play, but you just look at him and he looks more of the Jacob Lacey type, where you're like, oh, he doesn't have that, even though he's bigger than Lacey was, but he is an exceptional. So Williams is a guy who plays running back for his team as well, and he's a crazy athlete. And they had him lining up, him and Parks, both of those guys, just extremely twitchy, one gap penetrator, guys who can play nose but probably are three tech types, could be big time pass rushers. And you just saw stuff from them too, where like they took to coaching, like they're like, hey, work on this move, boom, they go and do it, right? Like because I don't even think, like, some of the offensive linemen, obviously Sullivan Garvin was working out there as Notre Dame commit in 2026, and so was Ben Nichols, and both those guys look good, but it's like those guys had trouble with those guys too, because they were just good. Like, and Robertson is more of like, he's really good twitch for his size, but he's not going to be quite the pass rusher that those guys are. Doesn't quite move the same laterally as them. But I mean, all those guys, like, you get three guys who are 300 pounds plus that can really move, that are going to be like, and already are like high level prospects. Those are guys like I think will be 100% guys for Notre Dame going forward. Because I think if it like kind of flipping it, like Isaac Miller, who's a guy who he's a super freaky long guy from Wisconsin, and you watch him and compared him to like Vaughn, or even like Jeremiah Williams when he was lined up on the edge, and he does not have that same lateral ability, and he doesn't really kind of know how to use his length to the best way possible. Like, he should just be long arming people to death every single time. And he kind of just doesn't know how to do that yet. He doesn't kind of know, like, his hands don't match his feet yet. And to be honest, he looks like a kid who's probably going to grow into a 3-tech. But that's also too, when you look at like that guy and you look at him and you say, okay, well, he has all these things where size wise, he looks like, man, this guy's going to be a future NFL guy, but there's a different feel to it. And there's different levels of where guys are in terms of, where they're at as prospects. And like, Vaughn is a 2028 kid. He's 220 pounds. He's like, just under 6'3", and yet you stand him next to Miller and you'd say, well, Miller's a better prospect, but it's not really close in terms of, where they're at right now.
Mm-hmm. And there's the value of getting these guys on campus and working out, where it's like you
Yeah.
can evaluate them, as a standalone, as a prospect you're watching on tape, you watch them, you see them in person or whatever it might be. But when you get them on campus and then they're all there and they're all working together, it's like, that guy looks a little different, right? Or like this guy looks different than that guy, and to the thing you said, you see him physically, and that's one thing. But then you get them moving around, actually doing the sport and playing the game, and you think, I don't know, like it just doesn't pop. And look, this is your impression, not the staff's or whatever. We don't know how they feel about it, but that's the value of, that's why you want to get these guys on campus. We talk about it all the time, but this is the value, kind of, in real time here.
Yeah, and I just want to mention too, because of Garvin and Nichols, who, first of all, I love when there's guys like that who just still want to like work out and like
still doing it. They're committed. It's a huge deal because everyone is there and you're there, and obviously every other site is sending people to this, and they can get evaluated. And I don't know what you're about to say, but like it puts them out there to the point where it's like,
it puts them out there and they have nothing to prove. They're committed. They're long-time commits. There's like fact, secure in it.
There's actually only downside for them.
Yeah. So, probably. Yeah. So, and so I always just appreciate when guys just come out and compete, and those guys are out there. But I will say too, and you know this, Greg, because I've mentioned it a lot. Sullivan Garvin is extremely underrated.
Yeah.
And he is like fast. Like, he is a good athlete. He ran his 40, and Al Washington was doing the timing. And he joked, like, hey, you ever play defensive tackle? And you're like, oh, whatever, right? But then he talked to Garvin's dad after, and he was like, hey, seriously, like, you should play. It's a real thing. Like, he is for a guy to be that big and that athletic, like, which is just why too. And you could see too, he's got a meanness to him.
Yeah.
And I like Nichols too, man. I like both those guys. I think both those guys are going to be players for Notre Dame too, right? And they're both interior guys. And also too, like, those guys were like the guys encouraging the other guys and like, competing. They were like acting as leaders out there too, right? Because they're the older guys anyways, but they were doing that. And I just think whenever you see that too, those are the kind of guys you want to have in your room, right? In your offensive line room. And I will say too, like, it's tough because I actually think like there were three guys that kind of like, kind of went into the camp kind of like looking at offensive line wise of like, Cameron Wagner already has an offer. There's like a couple other guys, Luke and Jay, Chuck, and James Halter, who were other guys. I was like, oh, maybe those guys will get offers. And those guys had a tough time today. But I think it's because it's like, hey, the guys you're going against were just really, really good. I think out of those guys, I thought Jay Chuck looked the best. And also I think he's the guy who is Halter. It's tough because he's never played O-line. Like, he's been a tight end. He's converting. He gets after it though. I really liked how he competed and stuff. But I think it's funny because Wagner's the guy with the offer. But he was the guy that I was like, oh man, I don't think he's a tackle. Like, I think he's a guard, and he was playing tackle, and he was, having a tough time. And because I think he's a bit too heavy-footed to play tackle, and I wonder if he'll be better off as a guard. But he's another guy too that when you look at him, he's like, he's probably like 290 pounds, but it's like all lower body. Like, this guy is he's gonna add so much up top. And you just kind of forget, and they're like, oh, this guy hasn't played his junior year of high school yet.
Yeah. You mentioned that not the greatest receiver group in terms of prospects.
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest. Quentin Burrell was there, who was a 2027 kid who has an offer. And to me, he was 100% like the alpha guy. Like, he was the best guy there. Made a great catch in the one-on-ones to kind of finish. I think he's got great ball skills. You just see he's got like a polish to him already that I wouldn't even say, like, when I watch him, he didn't look like just total elite athlete. just pop in terms of like, man, this guy's just so much faster. Like when you watch like Cam Williams at like an invasion, you're like, oh, this guy he's just easy speed. He just can run different. Where Burrell, I don't see that as much, but you just see a lot of stuff within his game. It's a lot like Jaden Greathouse to me, right? Where you're like, this guy's got a polish to his game. He's just a heck of a receiver. Great ball skills, can go up and get it. Knows to like kind of flash late hands, things like that, right? Where you're like, he's just, I think he's going to be a guy who's like a high floor type of kid. I was impressed with him too, because there was, and there's a better group of DBs there than there was receivers. There's some other good receivers there too. And I mean, I don't even know who this number 30 kid was who was a receiver, because he was like not on my radar, but that guy probably made like 3 catches today that were better than anybody else. So that's always a good thing, right? With like, you don't know, like, I mean, maybe that guy will be a guy, probably not, but like maybe he will be, right? Based off today. Cause there were other guys too that were like not really on my radar today who kind of popped, and sometimes those guys become guys. And so that's kind of like always, exciting when you have those kind of guys.
Yeah. Mike Brown not beating the allegations on that front. We just talked about it with the other guys. Like, you got to get guys on campus. You got to get players on campus. And especially when, we had discussions last year about, the lack of offers going out in the 2026 class, where it was like the lack of getting guys on campus for visits in the 2026 class. They're not on campus. And now you're trying to kind of play catch up a little bit, which is to say, like, they did, right? But that's not what you want to do. That's not best practice, right? You want to get the top guys on your campus as often as possible. And so 2027, like, we're following the same pattern there, and that's just like not what you want.
Well, just I think you look at it and you say, with the defensive line, and you look at the guys, and I just talked about three defensive tackles from the 2027 class, and I'm like, yeah, like these are probably guys they're going to recruit the whole way. Whether or not they get them, we'll see. But like, they're getting 2028 kids that they like on campus. Like, when you're doing that, guys who already have offers or who like are going to earn offers, like, that's a really good thing. I mean, there could be guys today that there was a kid, this McKinley kid in 2027. Sorry, the first name escapes me at the moment, but I just thought just like body wise, he was a guy who was like looked like a dude, and he to me was very raw in a lot of ways, but you could see a lot of good in him. Where I'm like, this could be a guy. He might be a guy for Notre Dame going. So like, in saying that, like, that's a guy who, maybe this is like the start of him becoming a guy there. And there were some other 2027 kids like that too. But, or I think he might've been a 2028 kid or whatever. Right. But like, I think, when you see that, it is about getting like the 2028 kids. Cause then it's like, you got to get that. And that's kind of what we said about last year with receiver too, is like, well, you're waiting for these 2026 kids to get on campus, and they weren't getting on campus. And then that's why, you kind of are where you are. And that's the same thing now. So like, if you go through these next couple months and you don't hear about this 2027 kid visiting or that 2027 kid visiting, that's a problem. And to be fair, it's not all on Mike Brown. That's on, because now it's like, it's not just the receiver coach now, it's everybody, right? Like it's all the personnel people, all that kind of stuff. And yes, it's been a historically hard thing for Notre Dame to get all these guys, but they got to do a better job.
Yeah. It's been, like you said, it's been an issue, and it was an issue, last year for this upcoming cycle. And so you feel like it can't be an issue again. And then here we are, like you got, if there's especially at that specific position, you got a weakness there. You got to address it. right?
Yeah.
You got to make it. You got to make improvements. You got to elevate, as Marcus Freeman likes to say. Elevate your your media company too, Jamie. You can elevate that. Everyone can always elevate that for their social media page, for their website, for their small business or their highlight reel or whatever it might be. And you can elevate with VSR Media, founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy award-winning anchor Vahid Sadwazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. Before we move on to 2026, guys, Josh Miller says, glad you could grace us with your presence, Greg. On Monday, I could not do the show. Although it worked out because Christian did it and
got a ton of recruiting info.
Got a ton of recruiting info. You're welcome, everyone. That's you make the best out of everything. Says, I hope my daughter's team won. They did. They are champions.
Congrats.
Again. Yes, second tournament in a row. Good little soccer players over here, Jamie. They're doing a great job. We're proud of them. So that's where I was, and happy to be back. All right, let's go on to 2026. Let's start with Alistair Vallejo. He was just on campus for Notre Dame. It's coming down. Everyone kind of thinks it's coming down to Notre Dame, Michigan. I think going into the visit, and of course he's committing on the 10th, which is next Tuesday. I think going into the visit, there was optimism that this could lead to maybe even a commitment or like a silent commitment, and teams or schools were going to know what he was doing ahead of his announcement next week. That is not what happened. I think it's just his personality. He wasn't very talkative he's not very expressive in how he feels about things. And it just, I don't know. I think because of that, the vibes have kind of shifted. It's like, oh, Notre Dame's going to miss. And they thought it was this, that, and the other thing. I think people have kind of settled down there. And it's just one of those things, like maybe the player doesn't even know. Matt likes to talk about this all the time. Like I ask him about a prospect, what do you think? And he's like, I don't know, because the player doesn't know. And so how can anyone know about it? And I think that's where things might be with him. What's your kind of read on this, Jamie? And then we can kind of go into the pivot that Notre Dame might have to make should they miss on him as a prospect. So what's kind of your feeling today? And obviously these things are subject to change, but just kind of where do you feel about it and how Notre Dame could pivot from here? If they miss.
Well, yeah, if that's the thing, like you said, we don't sorry, I'm just texting Mike back right now because he called me in the middle of it. Didn't know we were recording, but I think it's one of those things, like it very much, because Tiki Hola, extremely similar situation where it was one of those things where people kind of thought, well, I guess he's not going to Notre Dame. But just because of that does not mean that, where he's going to go. And I think notoriously, like with Michigan, especially if like Michigan is in it, like they're people who cover their team are pretty extreme homers, and they're kind of overconfident if they think, even if they should be slightly confident. So, and I haven't seen like a ton of that, so I don't know where there's at. And to be honest, too, like who knows? He could be into some other schools too. Like we don't really know. So I think you got to let it play out and see what happens there. If they don't get him, I don't think it's like, it's funny because it's like the guy was like offered like a month ago, and now it's like, well, they got to get him. Whenever it's like, this guy wasn't even on the radar like 2 months ago. And now it's like he's a must get. Like he's a good prospect. He's a very, very good prospect, and who I'm a big fan of. But I do think they'll ultimately find. Like I don't think they have to like react and like offer anyone else, you just kind of like go on down the line. Then
They would have to
just
miss.
becomes.
They would have to miss 2 or 3 more times.
Oh yeah. So it's like now then it just becomes, well, it's a little bit more important to get like Elijah Golden or Mikhail Blade and so on and so forth, right? And I think that Drake Quinn, who I mean, to be honest, like Drake Quinn, I'm the biggest fan out of all these guys. So so we'll kind of see what happens there. And then obviously too, they got other guys down the line that I even like that they're not even as high on. So I think they're going to be fine no matter what. If they get them, I always think it's always good to just recruit from like a point of like, hey, we got so many good guys, and it's like, then there's just less pressure to get the next guy. And then it just obviously, if they don't get them, there's just more pressure to get the next guy. But obviously, like you could have said that about, well, they're feeling good about the defense line. It was like before they got Ewatade, and then all of a sudden they got Ewatade, and then Dunham, and then Tola, and then you're like, okay, now so. I think they're in a good spot. I think obviously like even to the point that with Al Washington and Nick Sebastian, when you're like recruiting well and you've obviously coached well and stuff too, you're kind of feeling it. And so I kind of feel like those guys probably feel like, hey, we're going to get them or we're going to recover. Like, so I think they'll be fine.
Yeah. I think the lack of info is just very rare for fans at this nowadays, just because usually
to be so close to it. Yeah.
So close. And you kind of know, and not just that, but the vibes were such that like Notre Dame's going to wrap this up, And so I think for fans, it's like, it's already in their mind. Like they've kind of put them in the class. And so that at that point, if you miss, well, then you get kind of like, not panicky, but then you start to look at, well, what if they miss on all of them? Then what, and whose fault is this, right? Like, and I think that's the thing. Like Tiki Hola is very similar to where I think there was like 1 or 2 days where it was like SMU, like they're a real threat, right? And they've got a good NIL program. And it's like, well, if they miss on him, then what's going on with Vallejo? And we don't actually know. And then they land him, and then, the cycle kind of goes on there. And to be honest, like that's kind of the case with, like, I think Joey O'Brien is in that case, is in that kind of like a similar boat. Like we'll just pivot to him now. He set, I think people have been very concerned because of the lack of info or lack of juice on the Notre Dame side of things, because he hadn't been to Notre Dame in a bit, and he's been to these other places. He's going to Clemson. And I think whenever he goes somewhere, and I don't know that this is intentional on his part, you just
I don't think it's intentional.
Yeah.
He's just on the high of the visit. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he had a good time. Right. And it's okay to have a good time at a visit. That's like kind of the whole point. Right. And I think he goes somewhere, and that place has the juice. Right. And there's a lot of juice with him, and obviously the writers, and they put it out there, and then, people kind of weigh in on things. He sets the commitment date of the 20th. That's when he's supposed to be on official visit with Notre Dame. There's a panic there where it's like, is he going to cancel the visit now? Or are we just going to completely miss? People are concerned about DB recruiting as it is. He moves up He moves up his visit date to the 13th. He cancels on, I think it was Tennessee. He was supposed to go to Tennessee. Didn't go to Tennessee. Now he's coming to Notre Dame on the 13th, which then kind of sways. It's like, well, Notre Dame has the last word, and if he's the type of player that he gets on a high at the last place he went, then maybe it's really good to be the last place. I don't really know. I don't think anyone does, I mean, I think it's just one of those things. Like it's going to come down to the wire. Penn State, Oregon, Notre Dame, and it's kind of, let's see where it plays out. Right. Like, is there any other way to see it with Joey O'Brien at this point?
I don't think so. And I actually think if you look at like kind of like that 13th visit weekend, I think that's better that he's there then, because they already have like Aiden Pouncey's going to be there, who's already commit, obviously. That's when Thomas Davis Jr. is going to be there. Obviously, he's been a guy who's like a big recruiter for Notre Dame. Tiki Holo's already committed. It's going to be there. Bunch of guys on offense too. It's going to be a big thing. But Chasen Smith, another ND commit, DB is going to be there, and Corey Adams, who they've went and gone on take a visit to Penn State. So it's kind of like you're either going to go there and O'Brien and Adams are kind of going to be like, yeah, I think this might be the spot, or you're like, I don't know, like this isn't hit the same as Penn State, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't, or whatever. But like, I kind of think that has been beneficial for that to be moved up for Notre Dame, and he just every kind of visit he seems like to be, which I think is actually extremely normal. He's just to go on a visit and be like, oh my gosh, like Oregon, because anyone who's ever gone on a recruiting visit, no matter any kind of like whatever place you've gone to, they roll out the red carpet. They absolutely roll out the red carpet. You never ate as much in your entire life on these visits. You eat at like the best steakhouse, you do this, you get that, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, they show you the best facilities. They do the crazy hype videos and all that kind of stuff. So who wouldn't be impressed on these visits? And I always think so. Notre Dame getting the last word, that getting in that on that June 13th. I think those are ultimately good things. And if he doesn't end up picking Notre Dame, you can't say they didn't have a favorable situation for them to kind of put the nail in the coffin and land him. So we'll see.
This is one of those things where if he doesn't go to Notre Dame, he just didn't want to. I don't think there's any way that Notre Dame could have made a mistake here. Anyone fumbled the bag or messed it up or whatever. Like when you have Kyle Hamilton, who just came through. You had X Watts, who just came through, and obviously those are safeties. You had Ben Morrison come through. Cam Hart was a wide receiver. He's now a starter in the NFL. He starts for the Chargers. You have Alohi Gilman, who starts like obviously Notre Dame has a lot of success in the secondary. They had one of the best secondaries last year. Obviously, you have Leonard Moore comes in as a 3-star, and now he's an All-American corner. We always talk about, Notre Dame, they need X kind of offense or the X kind of whatever to get these wide receivers. Like, and this goes for Corey Adams too. Like, what else do you need to see? I can't imagine Notre Dame not being an attractive place for any top player. I mean, top. The way that they run their defenses, the way that they set up their defenses, the coverages that they have them do, the types of, we're talking about NFL style coverages that they put out there on tape. Nothing prepares you for the NFL better than Notre Dame. Now, it's not like other schools don't also do this, right? So, Penn State, they do a good job. Clemson does a good job. Oregon, it's not like Notre Dame's the only school out there that's doing good stuff. But like, if you don't want what Notre Dame has everything that you want. If you don't want it, then you don't want it, and that's fine, right? Not everyone wants to go to Notre Dame, but like,
but there's nothing that any box that you wouldn't check other than maybe you don't want to live in South Bend, Indiana.
Right.
Which
and some people
fair enough for some people. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, like if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. So obviously he is an important recruit, and if they land him, it would be huge. So Notre Dame fans should be hoping that all the changes that that I just said that I think are favorable, hopefully that turns out to be the case, and they land him.
And their top guys are on it. Like Mike Mickens, he's on it. Freeman's obviously on this. Like you have Chris Ash, who he's probably not as involved because he's just the DC, but like he's a DB guy. He was a really good safeties coach.
Well, on the campus when the guy's there, that is when Ash is. It's just that's when people were like golden, right? Like it's the same thing. That's when that guy has to win. The coordinator has to win. Is when those guys like that are on campus and saying like, "Man, I want to play in this defense," right?
Yeah. And like I said, sometimes you get to this point and you're just not sure. I think Kdon Finley is kind of the same deal. I would say, this is what I would say. I think that there is the I don't want to say negative juice. The way that Texas has surged, I think, is different than kind of the other guys, where it's like that's always been kind of neck and neck. I think Notre Dame was a big favorite for Finley at one point. Texas has really made him a priority. They have surged on him, and they have treated him as a top prospect in their class. Obviously, he's from Texas. His dad played at Texas. Jermichael Finley, he played tight end at Texas. So like, there's a big pull there. That's one where it's like, hey, things have kind of changed. Like the ground has kind of changed there. They are adamant that this is going to be his decision. And there may even be people in his family who are pro Notre Dame that want him to go to Notre Dame. You know, we have heard that. So it's just like they do need to close. And unfortunately, in this situation, they don't have the track record of closing the way that Mike Mickens has at defensive back for this position. Not just Mike Mickens, or I'm sorry, Mike Brown, right? But just at the position recently. That's been difficult, right? So that's kind of one where it's like, you thought he was going to be in the class, and now just kind of you're very much more cautious than you were before.
Yeah. Well, and I think of like Madden Ferremo last year, where obviously that was like one of those situations where people were like, well, Notre Dame's done. And it was like something where it was like, it's a done deal in Notre Dame. And then it's like, how come it's not a done deal yet? And then it's just like USC kept creeping up, but then Notre Dame won in the end. So it just, I think when you're going after guys that, other big dogs want, and obviously like his dad went there. It's not like his dad went there and it's Texas. It's a good school.
And the type of offense that they play is very attractive to a wide receiver. It just is.
For sure. So it's just like going to be, so when you're going against these things, it's like, well, guess what? Like a good program is going to lose out on him. Like that is, and that's how it is for all of these guys now. But that's what you want. You want to go after these guys that, why would you want somebody that Texas didn't want? You know what I mean? Like sometimes those guys are good guys, but like for the most part, like if you were taking a guy from Texas that Texas really wants, that guy's a heck of a football player. So, and that's the business, right? That's what it is when you're dealing with these guys.
Yeah. And you don't know what resonates with a player. Like I heard you and Mike talking on Power Hour about, remind him like you weren't their top guy forever. Right. And then that's just true, right? Notre Dame has always treated him the way Texas is treating him now. I mean, you could say like they took you for granted. Like they just felt like we can land him anytime we want, but does that resonate with him? And maybe it does, and maybe it doesn't, right? Like that's something that we would say. We don't know the player. We don't know the situation. He's good though. He would be it'd be a big loss in my opinion, or a big miss, I should say. Can't call it a loss. He was never in the class, but it would be a big miss. I think he is kind of he has kind of everything that other receivers have, right? But I think from a route running standpoint, from a run after catch standpoint, from a speed standpoint, from a kind of knowledge of the game standpoint, I think he's kind of all of those things. I don't think he's like tremendous, like 5-star prospect or anything like that, but I think he's the best prospect that Notre Dame is recruiting this cycle. And so to miss on him would be a pretty big deal. They are after some other wide receivers though, and I want to talk about those guys. Let's talk about Jade Warren first, who is just on campus. He's relatively new to the wide receiver group. He's very fast, Jamie. He's got some really good track times. He's got a windy 10.36. Personally, I think he's about a 10.5 guy or a like high 10.4 guy, just personally. We were talking, yesterday about this a little bit. I feel like there's some Tanuk Hines to him, where it's like, man, you can't find track times better than Tanuk Hines is putting out there. But then you put on the tape, and it's like, where is this? Where's this guy? Where's the speed that I'm watching on the track? Where is that? And I feel like Jade Warren has a good bit of that. But what's kind of your evaluation for him as a prospect here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exactly what you said, right? Like, I don't think the track times match up with the actual what he does on the field, right? Like, I don't think he's the same type of burner. Like, and he had a 35-inch vert at the Army Bowl. So, I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, that's an explosive, jump for a high school kid.
Yeah.
And I just, I don't think he's a bad prospect. I just think he isn't. When you already know that going in, it's like the tape doesn't match up. So why doesn't the tape match up? That's always what I always think about with that. And I don't know. I don't know why that's the issue with him, but I certainly don't think like I look at it like a guy like Mason James, who wouldn't have nearly the same testing that he does. Mm-hmm. But Mason James looks so much faster on film.
I mean, just explosive. Like the explosive plays pop off the tape. They just do.
Yeah.
And for Warren, they just kind of don't. Like there's not a lot of just like him cooking guys. It doesn't. It's not there. I didn't put together this highlight tape like someone else did. Like it just is what it is.
Well, and they're also not going to leave out like, oh, right. Let's not put, they're putting on his best plays, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying these aren't bad highlights or whatever. He's like, fine. It's just what, it is in terms of like if I'm seeing someone there, and I mean, first of all, don't put that highlight on the tape. I don't know why that was the highlight on there where he's catching like a little hook and then getting tackled. Right. You just want to see, and some of it could be like, well, scheme wise, they're not doing more stuff, but like, I want to see if a guy runs, sub 10.5. Well, I want to see him run away from people on a football field, like in a way that you're like, oh, this guy is different. And, so the question is like whether or not like he can be that, in college. And sometimes, because you see it all the time, especially with other positions too, where guys have all this crazy testing and you're like, oh, like, why isn't the film is not good? But it's like technique stuff and it's all that kind of stuff. And maybe that is like, one of the deals with him is that he's someone that in terms of like changing speeds as a receiver, doing different little things to gain separation and some of that kind of stuff that I think, you'd like to kind of see more of, and maybe that like a little bit of refinement is what makes him become and like unlock some of that. Yeah.
And Jason Smith says, didn't he just start playing football recently? Maybe, right? To me, you'd still see the explosiveness though, like
you'd still see him like, hey, I'm running a go ball. Guess what? I'm just straight up because first of all, these are high school kids. I know it's Texas, but it's like some of the corners you're going against run 4.7. So, I mean, some of the guys are even slower than that. You should be pulling away from those guys if you are that fast.
Yeah, like 10. You're a 10.5 guy. Like you got to be cooking. I mean, you got to be cooking. I mean, that's fast. Like that is very, very fast. So, it is what it is. And look, it's funny because on the other end of the spectrum, there's someone like, Leonard Moore, right? Who is
didn't have the best.
He didn't have it. And look, maybe he can pick it up, right? And maybe that sort of thing comes out later on for him as a football player. Maybe there's just there is something to, he doesn't know how to. There is a cadence to your acceleration that is football necessary, that track is different. Right. And if you're a speed builder, especially as a track athlete, then it could take you a little bit and maybe you adjust as a football player. I like him. But here's the thing. And this is true of Ephraim White, too, who we can get to as well, because there's kind of Notre Dame's being linked to him and he's going to take an official visit here soon. with Ephraim White, and I'll just throw up his highlights here. To me, you're taking these guys, then you missed on Cohen Brown, who I think is better. You missed on Devin Fitzgerald, who I think is better, and you missed on Brian Williams, who I think is better. Like I wouldn't take any of these guys. I would have to miss on them to then kind of go to who these guys are.
I would agree, but I do like White better than Warren.
I agree. I was just about to say that. I do agree with that. Tell me why that is.
Well, I just think that I just see a lot more of like a lot more nuance to his game.
Yeah.
Right. Where, I think I see a guy who looks faster on the football field.
Yeah.
And first of all, I like that he plays DB and he's like pretty good defensive back too. He's skinny. He's like someone. So I also think that's another guy, because there's a ton of guys like this, specifically from Florida and Louisiana, who don't have the same kind of development, like physical development, because a lot of it is like these guys just need to like be in more of like a structured like strength and conditioning and nutrition plan to just be able to do that. So I think there too is like, I see a guy who I want to see what he looks like, 20 pounds from now, and what he can be. And I like him. I just think that, like you said, I mean, that's a heck of a catch right there too. Like, just well, I think that if I was going to say, I just like those other guys a little bit more. Right. So that's the way I would put it, but I think he's a good prospect.
You said it for me. My favorite thing about him is his defensive stuff, which isn't to say I like him better at corner or whatever. I like how he plays. He's small and he's skinny and he is physical and he will throw his body.
He's not afraid of the smoke.
Yeah. And I sent him on a corner blitz and he's coming hard, right? He's coming with heat, and like that type of fearlessness, that type of, competitive moxie, like that's what I think the Notre Dame football team wants. Marcus Freeman specifically. So that's why I like him. And like you said, I just see a better football player, John Imperial says, how does Warren's speed compare to Cam Williams? I guarantee you Warren has better track times than Cam Williams does. Cam Williams was, to me, he was a better football player. Like, he popped to me on tape. His explosiveness was very evident to me. That hasn't translated yet in college.
Well, that's why also too, like it's why you don't just take the track times and just say, hey, this guy's this, because Cam Williams, like, yes, he needed refinement as a receiver and he's still, working on that part of his game, but like he absolutely popped on the football field. Like, he was fast on the football field, and he's fast in person, working at camps and all that kind of stuff. That's why he was like a top 50 prospect, right? Like, so it's totally different. I don't think they're really like comparable in that way. Like, Williams is just superior in that sense.
Yeah. It's odd to me, I mean, again, to new kinds, his track times this year are unbelievable. I mean, they're like very good. I mean, very, very fast. Like, we're talking like he's going to make NCAAs as a freshman, which is hard to do. But then the football tape, it just doesn't look like that. And look, we know it doesn't look like that. Like, if you have a 10-4 guy who is showing you 10-4 on tape, then they got much better offers. Like, the offers would be different, but they're not. So obviously there's some kind of disconnect there. Jamie, I think we can end it there. It was a good show. Glad to be back. Glad to, we had to miss Tuesday because I got end of year stuff. And then yesterday, Jamie was traveling. Glad to be back. Next week will be a normal week for us. Monday will be Power Hour. Tuesday, Hit and Hustle. Thursday, Hit and Hustle. Recruiting's ramping up now. We're taking official visits. There's going to be tons of news. Christian is putting out a bunch of updates from Invasion on the board as we speak. So there's going to be a ton of information there. Matt is always grinding on the recruiting beat. So he's got a ton of information. Great time to head over to irishsportsdaily.com, sign up, become a member, and all those things. Hit the like button for this video. Subscribe to our channel. That is free, of course. You can do that, and tell your friends as well. So that's going to do it today. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you next week. Keep hitting and hustling.